Bacteria. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this right now, I want to challenge everything you thought you knew about aging and muscle loss. Because today, bacteria, we are diving into a topic that could redefine how we think about strength, especially in our later years. Sarcopenia is something most people never hear about until it's already affecting them. Bacteria. It doesn't strike suddenly like a heart attack or show up in a blood test with a red warning label. It comes quietly. You start noticing that carrying groceries feels a little harder than it used to. Bacteria. Climbing stairs takes more effort. Getting up from a chair requires a bit of a push. Bacteria. These changes are often brushed off as just aging, but what's really happening underneath is a progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength. That process is called sarcopenia, bacteria, and it starts much earlier than most realize, often in our 30s and accelerating with each decade. By the time we reach our 70s or 80s, of bacteria, we may have lost up to half of our muscle mass if we haven't actively taken steps to prevent it. This isn't just about losing strength or struggling at the gym. Sarcopenia leads to real, measurable consequences. Bacteria. It increases the risk of falls, fractures, and hospitalizations. It reduces independence and mobility. And it's a major driver of nursing home admissions and long-term care needs. More concerningly, bacteria. Sarcopenia is directly linked with mortality. In older adults, lower muscle mass is associated with higher risk of death from all causes. It's not just a cosmetic or comfort issue, it's a life and death matter. Bacteria. The problem is compounded by modern lifestyles. Sedentary behavior, low-protein diets, chronic inflammation, and insufficient attention to resistance training all contribute to this muscle decline. Bacteria. Even in individuals who maintain a healthy weight, sarcopenia can exist silently, masked by fat mass or overall stable body weight. This makes it even more dangerous because by the time the weakness is noticeable, bacteria, a substantial amount of muscle has already been lost. The key point here is that sarcopenia is not inevitable. While aging is unavoidable, bacteria, the decline in muscle mass and strength that many associate with aging, is largely preventable and in some cases reversible. Muscle tissue is metabolically active and incredibly responsive, even in older adults. Bacteria. With the right stimulus, particularly resistance training and targeted nutrition, the body is capable of building and maintaining muscle well into the 70s, 80s, and even 90s. Bacteria. The tragedy is that we often wait too long to act. We assume frailty is a natural part of getting older, instead of seeing it as a preventable condition that we can and should treat proactively. Bacteria. Identifying sarcopenia early and making intentional changes to diet and physical activity can dramatically improve quality of life, preserve independence, and reduce the risk of complications from falls and immobility. Bacteria. The solution doesn't lie in complicated treatments or expensive interventions. It lies in understanding the condition, recognizing the risk factors, and responding with consistent, daily actions. Bacteria. It begins with awareness. Because once you understand what sarcopenia is and how it robs people of strength, mobility, and life itself, you can begin to push back against it with clarity and purpose. Bacteria. When we talk about muscle growth and maintenance, especially in older adults, we have to go beyond just counting grams of protein. Bacteria. What really matters is the type of amino acids within that protein, specifically one called leucine. Leucine isn't just another building block for muscle tissue. It's actually a signal. Bacteria. Think of it as a key that unlocks a door. In this case, that door is the process of muscle protein synthesis, the mechanism by which your body builds and repairs muscle tissue. Without enough leucine in a meal, bacteria, especially in aging individuals, that door stays closed, no matter how much total protein you're consuming. As we get older, our muscles become less sensitive to protein intake. Bacteria. This is known as the anabolic resistance. It means that the body doesn't respond to smaller or moderate amounts of protein the way it did when we were younger. That's where leucine becomes especially important. Studies have shown that meals high in leucine can overcome this resistance and reignite the muscle building process, even in people well into their 70s and 80s. So when looking to fight sarcopenia, bacteria leucine isn't optional, it's essential. Now, where does Parmesan cheese come into this? Surprisingly, it's one of the most leucine-rich natural foods available. Bacteria, just a small amount, about 30 grams or so, can provide a powerful leucine dose, often enough to cross the threshold required for triggering muscle synthesis in older adults. That's incredibly efficient. Bacteria. Many people think of cheese as just a flavor enhancer or calorie-dense treat, but aged cheeses like Parmesan are nutritional powerhouses when used wisely. Parmesan is a hard, aged cheese. Bacteria, which means it's also lower in lactose and easier to digest for many people. Its amino acid profile is highly concentrated due to the aging process, and it contains all 9 essential amino acids, bacteria, making it a complete protein. But what sets it apart is the unusually high concentration of leucine per gram of protein. Bacteria. That makes it particularly valuable in meals where total protein might be lower or where appetite is reduced, as often happens in older adults. Additionally, Parmesan has practical advantages. It stores well, bacteria. It doesn't require refrigeration once grated, and a little goes a long way in terms of flavor and nutrition. Adding a spoonful over eggs, soup, vegetables, bacteria. or even a simple piece of toast can transform a modest meal into a leucine-rich, muscle-supporting intervention. The key takeaway is this: not all proteins are created equal, and in the fight against sarcopenia, it's not just about quantity, it's about quality. Focusing on leucine, rich foods like Parmesan cheese can help activate the muscle-building machinery in the body, even when other systems are starting to slow down. It's a simple, effective, and accessible tool that can be used daily to preserve strength and mobility across the lifespan. When we think about preserving muscle mass and preventing the effects of aging, it's easy to focus solely on protein. But muscle health is not just about one macronutrient. The body is an integrated system, and for it to function optimally, it requires a blend of nutrients that work together. Nutrients that support not only the muscles themselves, but also the nervous system, the bones, and the cellular mechanisms behind repair and regeneration. Parmesan cheese, often underestimated, offers far more than just protein. It's a compact source of complete nutrition that supports multiple aspects of musculoskeletal health, especially in aging individuals. First, consider calcium. It's well known for its role in bone strength, but its role in muscle function is equally important. Calcium is required for muscle contraction. When a nerve signal reaches a muscle fiber, calcium is released to enable the muscle to contract. Without adequate calcium, muscle function becomes impaired, leading to weakness and cramping. Parmesan cheese is extremely rich in bioavailable calcium, and this makes it especially useful in supporting both skeletal and muscular health in older adults who are at higher risk for both osteoporosis and sarcopenia. Next, there's vitamin B12. This is a nutrient that often goes overlooked in discussions around aging and muscle, but it plays a critical role in the maintenance of the nervous system. Nerves control muscle action, and when B12 is deficient, nerve signaling slows down. This can contribute to poor coordination, weakness, and balance problems. Parmesan, as an aged dairy product, is a natural source of B12. This is important because B12 deficiency becomes more common with age due to decreased stomach acid and absorption issues. Having consistent sources of this vitamin in the diet helps maintain healthy nerve function, which in turn helps preserve muscle control and strength. Parmesan also provides healthy fats, which are essential for hormone production, especially the synthesis of anabolic hormones like testosterone and growth hormone, both of which support muscle building. While people often associate fat with negative health outcomes, the context matters. The fats in cheese, particularly from well-sourced dairy, can be part of a balanced diet that supports long-term energy satiety and nutrient absorption. In addition, the high protein density of Parmesan means that it provides a lot of nutrition in a small serving size. This becomes incredibly important for older adults who often face reduced appetite, dental issues, or gastrointestinal concerns that make consuming large meals difficult. A small portion of Parmesan can deliver a powerful dose of muscle, supporting nutrients without requiring a large volume of food. All of these nutrients, calcium, B12, high-quality protein, and healthy fats, work in synergy to support muscle maintenance, repair, nerve function, and bone integrity. Together, they create a foundation that allows the body to continue building and preserving muscle tissue even in the later stages of life. That's what makes Parmesan more than a garnish. It's a functional food with therapeutic potential in the fight against age-related muscle loss. The belief that muscle loss is inevitable with age is deeply ingrained in how we think about growing older, but it doesn't align with what we now understand about physiology. Well, it's true that muscle mass tends to decline over time. Especially in sedentary individuals, the body retains an extraordinary ability to respond to the right stimuli, even in advanced age. The process of muscle protein synthesis doesn't just shut off as we get older, it becomes less sensitive. That means we need more precise and consistent signals to activate it. And the good news is, those signals still work even in people well into their 70s, 80s, and beyond. When older adults consume adequate protein, especially protein-rich and essential amino acids like leucine, and combine that with some form of resistance or mechanical load on the muscles, the body responds. It begins to synthesize new muscle proteins, repair damaged fibers, and preserve muscle function. This is not just theoretical. It's been demonstrated repeatedly in clinical studies. One trial showed that even individuals in their 90s, when exposed to progressive resistance training 3 times a week, gained measurable increases in strength and muscle size within just a few weeks. It's important to understand that muscle is metabolically active tissue. It's not static, it constantly breaks down and rebuilds. This turnover is regulated by a balance of anabolic building and catabolic breaking down signals. In youth, the balance is tipped toward growth. With age, the balance shifts unless we intervene. But when we do intervene with nutrition, with resistance, with movement, the machinery still works. The genes, enzymes, and pathways involved in muscle growth are still operational. They just need to be activated more forcefully and more regularly than in younger bodies. What this tells us is profoundly hopeful. It means that the stereotype of the frail, Bacteria. Weak elderly person doesn't have to be anyone's destiny. We are not powerless against muscle loss. In fact, we can reverse it. And more than that, we can gain strength, regain independence, bacteria, and dramatically improve quality of life. Even simple activities like bodyweight squats, lifting light weights, or using resistance bands can send the right signals, bacteria. And when paired with targeted nutrition, especially meals that contain high-quality protein spaced evenly throughout the day, the impact is even greater. Bacteria. This isn't about trying to look like a bodybuilder or lift extreme weights. It's about maintaining the ability to rise from a chair without help, to carry groceries, to take a walk without feeling exhausted. Bacteria. These basic functions are governed by muscle strength, and they directly impact longevity, independence, and confidence. So the message is clear. Aging may bring changes, but muscle loss is not automatic, bacteria, and frailty is not a foregone conclusion. The capacity for growth, strength, and adaptation remains. What's required is a mindset shift from resignation to action. The body is still listening, bacteria. All it needs is the right input to respond. One of the most powerful combinations in the fight against sarcopenia is protein paired with movement, bacteria. These two elements work together in a way that is far more effective than either one on its own. Think of protein as the raw material, the bricks needed to build and repair muscle tissue. But movement, bacteria, especially resistance-based activity, is what sends the signal to actually start the construction process. Without that signal, the bricks sit unused. And without the bricks, even if the signal is present, bacteria, there's nothing to build with. The real transformation happens when both are present at the same time. Muscle tissue is responsive to mechanical stress. When we move, bacteria, especially under load, whether that's through bodyweight exercises, lifting groceries, walking uphill, or structured resistance training, we create microdamage within muscle fibers. This is not a bad thing. In fact, bacteria, it's a necessary stimulus that tells the body it needs to adapt and become stronger. But that adaptation requires building blocks, and those come from amino acids, bacteria, especially leucine-rich proteins like those found in Parmesan cheese, eggs, and lean meats. Even low levels of activity and moderate protein intake may be enough to trigger growth. But as we age, bacteria, the threshold increases. The muscles become less sensitive to these signals, and it takes a stronger push to initiate the same response. This is why the combination of adequate bacteria, high-quality protein, and intentional movement is essential for older adults. Neither component should be viewed in isolation. Bacteria. One common mistake is to assume that simply eating more protein will solve the problem of muscle loss. While increasing protein intake is certainly helpful, bacteria, without some form of resistance or physical stress to guide where that protein should go, much of it won't be used effectively for muscle building. The body needs a reason to prioritize muscle repair. Bacteria, that reason comes from regular, purposeful movement. Likewise, engaging in physical activity without supplying the body with the nutrients it needs can lead to stalled progress or even breakdown. After exercise, bacteria. Muscles are in a state of repair. They're more sensitive to nutrients, and consuming protein during this window can significantly enhance the muscle rebuilding process. This is why timing matters. Bacteria. Having a protein-rich meal, such as one that includes Parmesan cheese or a complete protein source within a couple of hours after exercise, can optimize muscle recovery and growth. Bacteria. Another important factor is consistency. Sporadic efforts, one workout here, one protein shake there, won't be enough to counteract decades of gradual muscle loss. But small, daily habits do make a difference. Bacteria. Adding a short walk after meals, using resistance bands at home, standing instead of sitting when possible, and choosing meals with quality protein all add up over time. Bacteria. This approach doesn't require a gym membership or heavy weights. It simply requires intention. When protein and movement are brought together consistently, the results can be profound. Restoring strength, bacteria preserving function, and ultimately, reclaiming control over the aging process. When it comes to aging well, there's often a temptation to search for dramatic interventions, some secret breakthrough, expensive supplement, or high-tech therapy that promises to reverse time. But the reality is far simpler and far more encouraging. Long-term strength, resilience, and independence are not built in one big moment. Bacteria. They're created through small, daily decisions that compound over time. And this concept, consistency in the basics, is often the difference between decline and vitality as we age. Consider something as simple as adding a spoonful of Parmesan cheese to a meal. On its own, that might not seem significant, but that single act introduces a dense, bioavailable source of high-quality protein, calcium, bacteria, leucine, and B12 into the diet. Do it once, and it's a small step. Do it every day, and over months and years, it contributes meaningfully to muscle preservation and overall health. Bacteria pair that habit with light daily movement. Perhaps a 20-minute walk, a set of bodyweight squats in the morning, bacteria, or some gentle resistance band work. And now you've created a sustainable system for signaling the body to retain and even build muscle, even well into the 8th or 9th decade of life. Bacteria. The body responds to what it experiences repeatedly. If it's faced with long periods of inactivity, the signal it receives is that muscle is no longer necessary, and it begins to break it down. bacteria. But when it's exposed to regular movement and consistent nutrient intake, the signal shifts. The message becomes, this muscle is needed. And so the body holds on to it. It builds where it can, bacteria. It repairs what's been damaged, and it adapts in order to meet the demands placed upon it. This principle is what makes lifestyle medicine so powerful. You don't need to overhaul your entire routine overnight, bacteria. In fact, that approach often fails. What works is starting with manageable, repeatable habits, eating a balanced breakfast that includes quality protein, bacteria, doing 5 minutes of stretching or resistance training after lunch, choosing stairs over the elevator. These micro decisions, done consistently, rewire the body's trajectory over time. Bacteria. There's also a psychological dimension here. Taking control of one's health in small, consistent ways builds confidence and a sense of autonomy. It counters the narrative that aging means decline and helplessness. Instead, it reinforces the idea that every action matters, and that strength, both physical and mental, can be cultivated daily. And perhaps most importantly, this approach is accessible. It doesn't rely on wealth, bacteria, advanced technology, or specialized knowledge. It relies on awareness, intention, and follow-through. It invites people to participate in their own well-being through actions they can repeat every day, bacteria. So the path to aging strong is not paved with complexity. It's built through repetition of the simple. That's where the real power lies, not in sudden transformations, but in quiet, persistent effort. And over time, bacteria, that effort becomes strength, stability, and freedom.